Welcome to Cents and Sensibility, where we like to talk about money without the stress. My name is Chris. I'm here with my good friend.
I'm Phil.
All right, so in today's episode, we're going to be diving into the world of credit cards. It's a tool that's often misunderstood and misused. They're very convenient. They can build your credit. They can also come with perks. But if you're not careful, they can add and lead to a lot of stress, debt, and years of financial struggles for you. So the good news, though, is that you don't need to avoid credit cards to stay financially healthy. With the right habits, they can be powerful tools for your financial goals. So let's get into it. Point number one, right? How do credit cards work? Credit cards essentially just let you borrow money up to a set limit, which you're expected to pay back at the end of every month. And if you don't pay the full balance back at the end of that month or billing cycle, you're gonna be charged interest on the remaining amount. So the key is to understand how the interest works as well as how to avoid it, right? So as a good example, imagine you have a $1,000 credit card with 20% interest rate and they only pay the minimum on that card. It could take years to pay off that balance in the long run, and you might end up spending over $2,000 when the interest is factored in. A good tip to keep in mind when it comes to credit cards is always pay your balance in full each month, obviously to avoid interest. But if you can't, aim to pay as much as possible above the minimum required payment to reduce what you owe a little faster. As well as something extra to think about is credit card interest compounds daily, meaning the longer you carry that balance, the more expensive it's going to get. Small purchases can snowball into big problems really fast if left unpaid. But that's not to say there aren't benefits to credit cards, right, Phil?
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Chris. There's a lot of benefits to using credit cards that people should be taking advantage of, which brings us into number two, which is the benefits of using a credit card. So let's dive into that. So, credit cards offer perks like building credit, earning rewards, and protecting you from fraud. The key is using them responsibly to maximize those benefits. So, for example, we had a viewer who used travel rewards on their card for everyday purchases, and they were able to earn enough points for a free flight after 6 months. They paid off the balance each month, so it didn't cost them anything, and they were able to take advantage of those points without having to worry about accruing extra debt. So that's a good way to take advantage of the benefits. And, a tip I like to give is to match your card to your lifestyle. So if you want miles, you can get a card that's going to give you miles. If you want a card to give you % back on purchases, there's a card that'll do that. So just make sure you're finding the card that's right for you. So, if you love to travel, like one of the viewers mentioned in our comments, go for the travel rewards card. If you spend a lot on groceries, I'd choose a cashback card with a high grocery rewards cashback, and I'd go with that card. So you want to make sure you're taking advantage of what fits your lifestyle. And another thing I want to mention here is fraud protection is a big perk that people should be taking advantage of. So if your card is stolen, you're not going to be liable for any authorized charges, of course, and it's also going to monitor your statements to catch any suspicious activity that you may let slide because you're not checking it all the time. So you definitely want to take advantage of that if you can.
A really great point, Phil. Obviously credit cards can be beneficial, and obviously with them being beneficial and having their benefits, you gotta also take into consideration the risks of credit cards, right? So credit cards can come with risks, especially if you overspend and don't understand really how they work, right? So like I mentioned earlier, carrying a balance or missing payments can really hurt your credit score and cost you hundreds in fees, let alone, your credit score is essentially your financial reputation, right? So a good example to kind of explain this would be one of our viewers shared how they maxed out one of their cards and missed payment, if not I think multiple payments, which dropped their credit score by about 50 points, if not more. And it took them months of consistent payments every month to recover those points that they lost, right? So a good tip to keep in mind, I like to tell people, right, is that you keep your credit utilization below 30% of your total limit. So for example, if your limit is, let's say $1,000, right, you keep your balance under $300. And that's the main goal. And last thing to really make sure people, I like to tell people to always think about is late fees and penalty interest rates, because those things can add up quickly. And with that, I always tell people, make sure you set up auto pay, and automate it so that way at least the minimum amount is always going to be paid to avoid missing due dates, so you don't get hit with those late interest rate fees and such.
Yeah, Chris, those are some great risks to keep in mind when you're going to use credit cards to get points and things like that. Which brings us into number 4, guys, which is some smart strategies you can take advantage of. So the key to using credit cards wisely is to treat them like cash. Don't charge what you can't afford to pay off on the credit card just because you have that limit. And you want to strategically build your credit with them to earn the rewards. You don't want to just max out your card so you can get those rewards and then you're stuck paying off the interest on that amount. And for example, guys, we had a college student we were working with who put their monthly Netflix bill on a credit card each month. He paid it off immediately and was able to build up his credit score. And within a year, he was at about 720 just by keeping those subscriptions on there and paying them off each month. So he was able to do small, consistent usage of his cards, and that worked wonders for him. So another tip I like to give people is to set up text or email alerts to remind you when payments are due or when they're actually going to be approaching, so you can adjust your spending limit accordingly. So you're going to want to make sure to set up those alerts if you have the app or your bank allows you to do that. And another point I'd like to bring up is if you're new to credit, consider a secured credit card. It requires a deposit as collateral, but it's a great way to start building your credit and it offers minimal risk.
So what's been your experience with credit cards? Have they been helpful or more trouble than they're worth? Drop your story in the comments below. Love to hear how you manage your credit cards, and I'm sure others would as well. But just remember, credit cards aren't inherently good or bad. They're just tools. The way you use them determines whether they are going to help you or hurt you in the process of you trying to achieve your financial goals. So treat them with respect, pay them off in full, use them strategically to build your credit, and make sure, if they have rewards, you earn those rewards. As always, if this episode helped you rethink your credit card habits, hit the like and subscribe button, and don't forget to share it with someone who could use these tips. But be sure not to miss out on our next episode where we'll break down how to decode your paycheck to uncover hidden deductions on taxes. And as always, keep your cents and sensibilities in check.